What's up everybody, SuperDucks fan here for another car review. This is of course the 2017 Honda Ridgeline RTL-E. Huge thanks to Honda for providing me with this very nice, cool Ridgeline to review for you guys today. So about the Ridgeline, well, it's all new here for 2017, and it's really a handsome looking truck, I have to say. I mean, much of the front end is shared with the Honda Pilot as far as styling goes, but still looks very sharp. I really like those headlights there. I think they have a very bold look without looking too outlandish or anything. Just a really nice, conservative yet attractive design. And you know, moving on towards the back there, you see the truck bed, of course, which is more traditional than the previous Ridgeline, and looks very good and has all kinds of cool features that I'll get into in a little bit. But yeah, overall, I think it's just a really good looking truck. Right, for the interior of the 2017 Ridgeline, well, it's a very nice place to be. Anyway, first things first, sitting down in these seats, they're very nice leather seats here in the RTL-E, and so very, you know, relaxed bolstering. Of course, this is being a truck, you know, it's not going to be as sporty as a Civic or something like that. They're very soft, comfortable seats, though. They are remarkably comfortable, and that's something that's not always a given in the truck segment. So really nice, these seats. And I also really like the little armrest that it has here that can fold down, and it's just, you know, a lot nicer to have it right there instead of having some, you know, center console that's a little bit further out of the way. This is really nice to just lean on while you're driving, and very nicely placed. Next is the steering wheel in the Ridgeline, which is very nice. You know, similar to a lot of the other Honda steering wheels, has a nice 9-3 grip, good little 10 and 2 notches here. And the only complaint I have is there's a fair assortment of buttons here, and they're kind of scattered all over the place. But, you know, they're relatively easy to find, and again, it's just something you have to learn, and once you get used to it, it's no big deal. But, you know, it is nice, some of these buttons, like for example, there's buttons here to jump between the 3 most commonly used apps on the center screen here, so you don't have to keep touching the screen while you're driving. You just hit that and toggle through, you know, navigation, phone, and audio very quickly, and I like that. That's a really cool thing that no other car companies that I've seen at least have had. Yeah, overall though, like I said, it's a pretty nice wheel, nicely leather wrapped, and feels good to use. Next is the gauges in the Ridgeline, which are pretty nice. Now, they're nothing to write home about. You know, they're your typical analog gauges for the most part, although you do have 2 nice little digital portions. The first up top that I really love is a large digital speedometer, which is the most important thing to most people, and so very nice and clear there. And then you also do have a very nice high-resolution color display there in the center, but unfortunately it doesn't display too much information, just, you know, all the basics of, you know, your trip information, things like that. But nice to have that nonetheless. It also is a cool little display so that whenever you're toggling through the different terrain modes, it'll pull up, you know, whether it's for snow, sand, or dirt, mud, all those kind of things. And so cool to have that little toggle, and the little animations are pretty cool to watch. Coming over to the center of the dashboard here, it's very nice the way that it's set up here. Up top, of course, you have the Honda touchscreen infotainment system here, which is really nicely done. Now, I do still wish there was a volume knob. You just have the touch-sensitive volume rocker type thing there that does respond very well. I haven't had it not pick up a command yet, but, you know, just a little thing that's missing, I think. Otherwise, though, I do really like the animations. They're all very slick, and, you know, all the graphics look very good on it. It's very easy to navigate. The navigation is also very clear, easy to use. You know, it's similar to like a Garmin, things like that, and so very nicely done there. And otherwise, you know, the audio and everything, it's all very straightforward. It also has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is a very nice feature that I am happy to see in a lot of cars, and all the Hondas that have it as a really great thing. And so overall, I think that is a really well done infotainment system, although it does take a little while to boot up sometimes. Another thing I'll add is that the premium sound system here in the RTL-E does sound very nice as well. You know, whenever you're listening to any type of music, it's very crisp, clear sound, and yeah, it's a really great audio system. Moving on down to the climate controls here, it's just a basic little black and white screen that, will show your temperature and, what the climate control system is doing here. And so it's very straightforward, easy to use though, not overly complicated. And so, it gets the job done well. As far as storage space goes in the Ridgeline, that is certainly one of its strong suits. There's an abundance of storage spaces in this truck. So first in the door, we'll start off over here. You have, of course, your typical cubby by your window switches. You have a second tier of cubby here, which also has a good amount of usable space in addition to a bottle holder, which is great to have. And then you have a third lower map pocket there as well that, you can store all kinds of stuff in there. So just a ton already in the door to start off. Coming over to the center here, right below the climate controls, you have a nice area here where you can put like a smartphone or something like that. And then below that, you have an even larger rubberized area here that you can fit, again, all kinds of electronics or whatever it is you want to use. And there you'll also find a 12-volt power outlet as well as a USB jack. So that's nice. That's the one that you'll use to connect for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. So nice to have those. You have two cup holders here right next to the shifter, and they're nicely out of the way and well placed. And then you have this massive center cubby, which slides open. I really like the cover, by the way. It looks very nice and feels cool. But anyway, you have this cavernously deep cubby here that you can fit all kinds of stuff. I mean, you could probably easily fit a gallon of milk in there. I mean, and then some. It's that big. I mean, it's just enormous. You also have another auxiliary jack as well as another USB jack in there, and also another power outlet down here. And then you also have this floating little tray as well that slides back and forth so that if you don't want to reach all the way down in there, you can put some stuff in easy reach here up top. And so just an extremely usable space there and very nice to have. Backseat space in the Ridgeline is pretty good. So the Ridgeline is only offered here in a crew cab, and so you have a pretty good amount of legroom there. I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself. I still have several inches of legroom to spare. I also have plenty of headroom, of course, thanks to the boxy design of the cab here, and it's actually a very comfortable backseat as well. It has a nice soft seats, much like the front here, and you have a little fold-down center armrest with two cup holders and an additional little cubby. And those back seats also have a couple cool tricks here. So one of the coolest things is that they lift up. So you just grab that handle there and they flip up, and it's very easy to store all kinds of other larger things like a TV or something back there, and just gives you a massive amount of space. And the only thing that really gets in your way is that little bar that's right down there to connect the back seats, of course. But other than that, I mean, you have a completely flat area there to use, and so I mean, that's just a very cool little trick to give it even more versatility. Another cool thing is that little back window has a part that slides open electrically, and so that of course can increase your versatility of passing through long items, or just to give you a little bit of extra ventilation if you so desire. In the back seat there, you'll also find, when you're looking forward, two different air vents, as well as additional cubbies and two USB jacks down there as well. So, you can load up the whole family in here and have all their devices connected and powered up. Now, of course, this is the Ridgeline, so the important thing here is the truck bed, and that is probably the most creative and innovative part of this entire vehicle, is all the features they crammed into the truck bed here, especially in the RTL-E, which is really fully loaded almost. And so, starting off with the actual truck bed itself has a good size, and it is a little bit shallower than your standard truck bed, I think, but it still is a very large space, and should be plenty to haul things like ATVs and the like. But the cool thing is that first off, the tailgate, which in addition to just folding down like a normal tailgate does, also can swing out, and that's a very cool feature. For whenever you don't want to just drop it down, it makes it easier to get into the bed there. It also makes it easier to access another cool thing with the truck bed here, which is that it has an in-bed trunk, and so you open that up, and a very large area there. You can also find your spare tire there and things, but it's a huge amount of space, and there's even a drain plug at the bottom. So this is the ultimate tailgating truck, really, because you can load that up with ice or whatever, and put your drinks in there, and then whenever you're done, you just open up that plug, and it drains right out to the ground, and couldn't be any easier. So that's a very cool, a very creative little thing that they integrated in there. Another cool thing is this one has the in-bed audio system. So there aren't any exposed speakers, but the way that it actually works is that there are speakers behind the walls of the bed there in a way, but it vibrates the bed walls so that they create the sound, and it's a very good sounding audio system. It's very loud, And again, we'll make you the all-star at your tailgate with, you know, the in-bed audio system. You got the cooler, and to top it all off, it also has an in-bed power outlet, which is enough to power a TV or anything like that. And so once again, just a very cool party-centric tailgate there, and should be very handy. All right, so start up and go for a drive. The Honda Ridgeline has a typical Honda key. Looks very nice though. Of course, it's keyless entry and push button start here on the RTL-E, so you just leave this in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and it starts right up. All right, so setting off in the 2017 Honda Ridgeline. So the first thing that you notice is the visibility in the Ridgeline, which is really, really good. I mean, most trucks, you know, you sit up high, and this one is no exception. You do have a very nice high commanding view down the road, but you know, the hood also drops down very nicely, which helps with your forward visibility. Side visibility is great thanks to these large side windows, and view out of the back is pretty good as well thanks to the nice rear window there. All right, so let's turn down onto this back road here and see how it does. Here we go. All right, so it's, you know, wet out here obviously, but with the all-wheel drive system, I don't think this is gonna have any kind of problem. This thing does pretty healthy performance for a truck. So this has a 3.5 liter direct injected V6 engine that does have VTEC, and so it has 280 horsepower and 262 pound-feet of torque, and so it's, you know, right in line there with all the competition. And the one thing that's better than the competition though is the 0 to 60 time on this is around 6.6 seconds, somewhere around there, and so it's very, very quick, you know, for a truck, and beats out the others by a good little bit. And so you know, even though this has roughly the same kind of curb weight of around 4,500 pounds or so as the others, it's just a really, really nice thing as far as, you know, pickup and you know, your performance in a straight line. It's actually really good for a truck. Just cruising down at a normal pace here on a main road though, one thing that you'll notice immediately first time you drive one of these is the stark difference between this and how a normal truck rides. This is the only unibody pickup truck in the United States, and so because of that, I mean, it rides nothing like a truck, and you'll feel that the very first bump you go over in this. If you've ever driven, you know, any of the other competition, you know, or any truck for that matter, it's gonna feel completely different than this. They all feel a lot more unrefined, a lot rougher. They don't soak up bumps as well. This soaks up bumps so well. It honestly, it does, like I said, it doesn't feel like a truck at all. In its size, it doesn't really feel like a truck either. It's just very manageable, very comfortable, and like I said, very refined. It has an acoustic windshield, so road noise is pretty quiet, although we do have a little bit more noise than normal here because of the water on the road. But otherwise, like, I mean, it is very refined in here, and that's just, it's a stark difference. You know, there's some people that want a truck to feel like a truck, and this might be a little too smooth for them, but I think for the large majority of people, you know, that are daily driving a truck, you want it to feel more comfortable, and this does just that. Other performance data to go over here though that is important to truck buyers is, you know, the max tow rating for this is 5,000 pounds, which is a little lower than some of the competition, which are up closer to 7,000 pounds. But it does have about the same payload as all the other competing trucks, you know, the GMC Canyons and Colorados, and you know, the Toyota Tacoma as well. They all have a right around, you know, 1,500 pounds for the payload, and this also has about 1,500 pounds for the payload here. So, you know, all very competitive. You know, Honda made sure to make this competitive with all the other trucks, because the truck market is very competitive, very tough, and so, you know, they had to make sure that they hit all the marks, and I think as far as numbers go, they certainly did. Coming up to some corners here though now. Again, it's wet, rainy, and I'm in a pickup truck, so I'm not going to go too crazy here, but just to see how it feels going around the corners, it does actually feel very nice. So this all-wheel drive system in the Ridgeline has torque vectoring, which actually helps to, you know, keep those inside wheels and modulate them a little bit to help with your cornering. And I have to say, again, thanks once again to the unibody construction and whatnot, it feels like it handles better than any of the other trucks that I've ever reviewed. It certainly is very flat for a truck, you know, and again, just gives you a lot of confidence going into corners. One thing though, as I was going into those corners, is there is a little bit more brake travel than I would like. Again, that's something you can get used to, but you know, there's a little more travel and a little less confidence inspiring than I would like. But I mean, once you do get on the brakes, then they slow you down very well and do feel meaty. Just a lot of pedal travel there. But yeah, other things to note, you know, steering feels good. Just the right weight for, you know, a vehicle of this type. Not too heavy, not too light, just right. I have no complaints with driving this thing. It really is so comfortable, and you know, that's the thing. I really like how Honda took a unique approach to the truck here. You know, they could have just made another truck like all the others and you know, made it rough and tough and all that. And this does, according to Honda, you know, off-road well and things like that. I have no experience with off-roading any trucks whatsoever, so I'm not even going to try because I wouldn't know what to look for. But I will say that, you know, in the stuff that I do, which is normal driving on, you know, normal roads, and that's what the large majority of truck buyers usually do for the most part, this, I think, aces those tests. But yeah, so that's about it as far as all my first impressions here. But thanks to Honda, I have this vehicle for an entire week. So I'm going to drive around all week here, and I'll come back and give you my final fuel economy for the week, as well as all my final thoughts on the truck. All right, so I've been driving the 2017 Honda Ridgeline here for a week now. I've put 205 miles on it, and I've really been enjoying it. It's just amazing to me just how smooth and refined this drives. I mean, not only is it better than all the other trucks I've ever tested, which is easy, obviously, like I said, because of the unibody construction, but also it's actually better than most SUVs that I've driven. I mean, if you would, you know, put me in the passenger seat of this thing and blindfold me, you could probably fool me into thinking I was in a normal car. It's that refined and smooth, and so it's just great for driving around. And that's, you know, I think this is perfect for the type of person who, you know, doesn't need heavy duty hauling or, you know, needs something super rough and tough, and they're fine with just a truck, you know, to give them the extra versatility of a truck, but they want a car-like ride still. This, I mean, does it better than any of the other competitors. I mean, the other competitors can't even get close in the ride department. Like I said, most SUVs even struggle to be this smooth when driving around. So as far as my fuel economy for the week here, I averaged 18.3 miles per gallon over the 205 miles here. Now, that was, I'd say, 25% highway and probably 75% city. So, you know, a lot of stop and go and, you know, accelerations and things like that. The city rating for this car, for this truck, is 18, and then the highway rating is 25 for a combined average of 21. So, you know, this is definitely on the lower end of that spectrum, but, you know, it is pretty decent. I mean, again, for a truck of this size and this weight with a naturally aspirated V6 engine under the hood, I think that's actually quite good, honestly, and I don't have any complaints. But, you know, it is, I guess, slightly lower than the estimates. You know, since I was closer to the combined, I was hoping to get a little closer to 20, but again, it's a truck. You know, that's one of the trade-offs with any truck is, you know, the extra weight and size means you don't get as good a fuel economy. During the week that I had it too, it actually did snow quite a few times whenever I was driving, and I gotta say, you know, I popped it into the snow mode here for the driving mode, and I mean, this is still on, you know, just a standard all-season tires, but it did really, really well in the snow, and I was really impressed with it. You know, this all-wheel drive system is very good. You know, the torque vectoring I also noticed whenever I wasn't on snow, and even just, you know, carving up corners and things like that, the torque vectoring is pretty cool. You know, I read a little bit more into it and how it can actually funnel 100% of the available power to one wheel if it needs to, and it can overdrive the inside rear wheels there, I think by 2.7% they said, so that you know, you can get that actual vectoring feeling whenever you're cornering. And I think there were a couple of times where I actually did feel it kind of working in the back end there to you know, help the handling, and I think that certainly helps to make this feel a little bit sportier than, you know, other trucks in its segment and things like that. And yeah, I really enjoyed that. Another thing I really enjoyed, just a random thing, but the headlights in this truck are really good. They're some of the best headlights I think I've ever tested in regards to just nighttime driving on a clear night. They're just so sharp, and they illuminate the road much better than a lot of the competitors. And so I just a random thing, but the headlights are spectacular. Another thing that's pretty impressive about this truck here is the amount of safety tech with the Honda sensing package that the RTL-E here has. I mean, it's got the adaptive cruise control, it has you know, the active braking, you know, the crash mitigation stuff, the road departure mitigation, in addition to the blind spot monitoring and all that, and it also has lane keep assist, and so all those things help to give you a little bit of extra confidence. There was one time where it freaked out and did the, like, oh, you have to hurry up and hit the brakes, and it thought I was about to hit something, but there was nothing around. So it did give me one false alarm. Now, other vehicles I've tested with this technology from other manufacturers also have given me false alarms from time to time. So none of these systems are perfect yet. It just did at that time whenever I was just driving in my lane perfectly normal. But that one wasn't quite as bad, just a little beep. So, I mean, these systems aren't perfected yet, you know, but it is nice to have an extra pair of eyes watching out for you, and it's not overly invasive, you know, like there. It kind of detected something, but it didn't freak out or, you know, cause the vehicle people to freak out. It just kept on going, but just alerted me to the risk there. But yeah, but it is nice that it has this technology at all, because I mean, you can get some of the more basic features of this technology in some of the other competitors, but none of them offer the extent of the technology that this does have. Now, the only unfortunate thing is I wish that Honda had a little bit more of a la carte options system, because really the trims, there is no options in the trims. It's just, if you want this tech, you have to go up to this trim level. And that's one thing, like for example, this is the RTL-E trim, and that's the cheapest trim. It's one of the top 2 trims that has the Honda sensing tech, and that's the only way you can get it. You can't get blind spot monitoring unless you spend over $42,000 or these other safety things. And I wish that there was an option to have the safety tech available on the less expensive models as well. But then again, like I said, none of the competitors even offer this stuff, so you can't be too picky. I'm just glad they have it at all. But it would be nice to make it available on some of the cheaper trims, so that people who don't care about the in-bed truck audio system, or the 540 watt sound system here in the cabin, if people don't care about that stuff, they just want the safety stuff, they can't get that unless they go to one of these fully loaded ones with leather and all that stuff. So that would be nice if they had a little bit of differentiation there, but like I said, I'm happy they offer it at all. The only one gripe that really arose during my week of driving the Ridgeline here is the infotainment system is a little slow to boot, and I counted nearly 30 seconds from when I started the vehicle to when everything was fully up and running and responsive. And so that's not a big deal if you're not in a hurry or anything, but there were times where I was like using Apple CarPlay, for example, and I wanted to get directions, and instead I'm sitting in a parking lot for an extra 30 seconds waiting for everything to kick in. And other vehicles that I've tested with CarPlay and with just the infotainment systems in general, they take a couple seconds to boot up, but usually not 30 full seconds until it's ready to go. So just wish that was a little bit faster in the infotainment department. I still do miss the volume knob. This is a little distracting with this volume rocker. I mean, of course you can still just use the steering wheel controls, which is what I ended up doing, but if you do want to play around with this stuff over here with these capacitive touch buttons, it does take a little bit more concentration than traditional buttons, but I do like the more futuristic look to it. And I do love the button here on the steering wheel to do the quick app switching, so you can switch, like I said earlier, between the phone, the navigation, and the audio, and that was actually really helpful, and I enjoyed using that as well. A handy thing that no other car really has. Another thing about the steering wheel, it's heated, and here in the winter time, that is a glorious feature to have, and it heats up really quickly and is also great to use. But yeah, so overall, I was really impressed with the Ridgeline here. The one that I have here, as tested after destination and stuff, was a little over $42,000, which may sound high to some people, but then again, have the fully loaded, all the tech, the all-wheel drive, the Apple CarPlay, all the safety stuff. Honestly, I think it's a pretty good bargain. And even whenever you consider the competition, they're all similarly priced as well, with less equipment usually. So overall, it's I think they have a very compelling package here. And the Ridgeline, again, is just a truck that sells itself. If you want something that doesn't feel like a truck and have a truck kind of ride, and you want refinement, and you want a little more comfort, and you don't do heavy duty hauling all the time, then I think that this sells itself, because there's nothing out there that even comes close to this as far as ride quality, comfort, and refinement. And so it's just, if you like that stuff, then go for it. There's a lot of diehard truck guys that want something that feels rough and doesn't have a good ride and all that kind of stuff, and that's just part of the truck experience to a lot of people. And for those people, they'll just always go for the other stuff. But like I said, I've actually seen quite a few of these things driving around while I've been driving this one this week, and I can see how it makes a lot of sense, especially for suburban areas. And so it's a very compelling package, and I really have to commend Honda for being really different with the Ridgeline and not just chasing the competition and just doing what everyone else is doing. I like that they did something really truly different. So anyway, huge thanks to Honda once again for providing me with this truck to review for you guys today. Let me know your thoughts on the Ridgeline, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.